Welcome, everybody. Now that we are unmuted, thanks to everybody who's joining online. Hoping this maybe works a little better than what we've done in the past. And if not, please let us know. Hopefully everybody can hear us right now. You're being recorded. Hopefully that's okay. And yeah.
Yeah, if anything, if you stop being able to hear us because of network congestion or something, just let us know.
Yeah.
Probably the best place is IRC.
And ping one of us.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to take no news as good news. Hopefully, Sophia, can you hear us since you could hear us before?
Yep, I can hear it.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Okay.
We can hear you too.
Good.
Okay.
Perfect. All right. Good news. All right. You're in charge, Brian.
Oh, okay. So let's get started.
So the first item I had on here that people wanted to make sure we discussed was the Cinder major version bump. And Cinder client, sorry. Cinder client major version bump. We've got, let's see, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 patches waiting out there on that. Mostly from Sean. 3 of them have been approved. Does anybody have concerns with trying to get those merged?
What is the background and purpose? Why is it a major version bump? Why do we care?
So I think it's mainly for the auto-negotiate API version.
Well, that's part of it. It's also that we were dropping support for a couple things, like the V1 API.
So yeah, here's
that required.
There?
Yeah. So Sean had 4 or 5 things that he's removing, which was what started this whole process.
Let me put.
And hence the need to bump the major version.
So he's got a release note for the.
And we're let me find the.
Yeah, no problem.
So that's his release note for the
Version change. And it's simple planning. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it says backwards compatibility has been removed for some long-standing deprecations, and support for the Cinder V1 API has been removed.
It's gonna just
prior to upgrading to this release, ensure all Cinder services that need to be managed are 13.00 Rocky or later.
I think they're all in this Garrett topic.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. This was the last one.
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing is the auto negotiation stuff Eric's doing.
Yeah, so I need to
changes things
fix one little thing in my patch that Brian pointed out yesterday. But other than that, I think it's about there.
Which one is that? Is that the auto
negotiate the
one
micro version?
Okay. Of the list. We keep looking up there.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
So I need to do an update to fix one thing in there.
Okay.
I looked over the rest of these a while ago, but I haven't reviewed any of them.
Okay. Well, I think the main reason I put this at the beginning of the discussion was so that we would have time to look through these while we're here and work on any issues with the goal of trying to get it done. I mean, we haven't done a Cinder client major version bump in quite a while, I don't think.
Yeah.
And so part of the goal was to get it all into one release.
So one thing I wasn't sure about with this is, would it be advantageous to try to push these in and do the release soon, or do we want to wait until we're getting close to the end of the window to do it? I don't know if it makes too much difference.
I think we're
The window is closing pretty
fast.
quickly.
I think it's the week of the 2nd or the 9th.
Oh, is it?
Which,
Yeah.
so it's within 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. So,
But we could do an early one, and then just.
well, it sounds like.
I mean, we
there's-
should release one already,
Yeah.
and then we'll have a little bit of time to.
I was thinking it was a little bit further out. That makes sense.
Yeah.
'Cause it's, yeah, it's the 9th.
Well, if we get this stuff merged this week,
Yeah.
that's about 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
I guess we should release as soon as stuff is merged.
Yeah.
Are
And
there,
then we can put out an announcement, ask people
To try
Yes,
it,
and then
and
we'll
that
still-
way if a bug comes in, we could do another one if we needed to.
yeah, okay, still be under the, still
there-
be within the window for
Yeah.
requirements freezes.
Are there many other things pending for the client in general? Looks like there's maybe some small stuff. Oh, we never finished the discussion about sort parameters for the PTG that Rajat was working on. Need to follow that up on that, see if we're going to finish that patch. Updated in months.
What's that?
This thing where if you pass in like cinder list and you give it multiple sort parameters
Okay,
and trying to make that do something coherent,
right.
which we decided was basically that we're going to not let you do that, I think. What
Okay,
we were
yeah.
going to do. Guess we need to see if he's actually still working on that or
Okay. And
someone else should.
I think he was going to try to join at some point
Yeah.
during the mid-cycle.
Who's that?
Rajat.
Oh, okay.
Who am I, Rajat? Who am I?
Because that's one of the only other client patches that looks like it's got little changes in it.
Okay. Would,
There's-
is that one that would require a major version bump?
No, but given that it changes behavior, it'd be nice to slip it in there if it was ready. But
Okay. You drop the link to that in the Etherpad.
That's the PDF thing. We're Cinder client. The same
The
thing.
Cinder client one worked,
Oh,
I believe.
okay.
that's basically just making a new Sphinx target.
Yeah, another talks edition. There's some changes to the doc source conf.py, bind up changes which may or may not need to stay. But Cinder itself doesn't build because it's too big.
Really?
Latex runs out of memory. It has a hard-coded limit in it of, I think, 500
Oh man.
megs or gigs. I couldn't quite figure out the number, but I cannot find a way to increase that size. Anyway, we can talk about it later.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm struggling with that because it's
Surely-
a goal of ours to.
Surely Cinder's not the only project
Nova
that's going to
must
run
be.
into that.
I would think Nova, but think about it. Cinder has 80 plus drivers, and every one of those drivers has their own document page too.
Right.
So if you're just documenting the service, it probably would be fine.
I see. Okay.
But all of those drivers, the PDF output when it failed was 384 pages.
You know, we're in our not contributing to global warming or something. Anybody prints this stuff out.
So is that
And our documentation isn't even that good.
so that's a PDF equivalent of some HTML thing that we build now, right?
Yeah.
It builds the HTML output first to generate all the intermediary files, and then
Yeah.
uses that to generate a single PDF.
So would it be possible to split it into multiple PDFs?
I don't know. Maybe that's
Does it at least build all the HTML?
yeah.
Yeah,
The
they-
HTML
Yeah,
that's
that's-
unchanged.
so
That
that's-
still works just fine.
If you get sections aggregate map.
So, I mean, does it have to build through LaTeX? or is there some other way to build a PDF? Because I started looking at this the other day and I was wondering
It's
why that was in there.
I've been working with the docs team in OpenStack
Yeah.
Doc to try and figure out how to get this to work and asking them for help because they're the docs people, so I'm hoping that they have more space in
Yeah.
latex experience than I do, which is zero.
I didn't even know you were working on that, so thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I've been working on it for a while. It's an internal goal of Sousa's to contribute as well.
Okay.
And
Oh, that's why Alex is working on it, heading it up. Okay.
yeah, and I volunteered myself and helping her out because it's a team goal inside the company to obviously help with that too. And I started with Cinder. Like, why not? And yeah, I ran into that. So I built OS
Good
Brick,
choice.
that's fine. Cinderlib does not build. There's all kinds
I saw
of
you
undefined references in there, and so I haven't looked any further into that. And then I built the Cinder client, and that I think worked just fine.
Rajat's asking if we started early.
No, we started late, Rajat.
Yeah.
Is he on now?
Is on IRC.
Oh, okay. So Cinder client and Cinder.
Cinder
Oh, and
Lib is
Brick.
probably just because nobody's hooked at the doc stuff in there.
Yeah, I don't think hardly anyone's looked at it.
Does it build HTML docs already, or does it?
I think so. Yeah. But when you try and do PDFs, it tries to do all internal reference links, and some of those are undefined and can't resolve them.
That's strange that it doesn't fail in HTML too.
Maybe HTML goes, whatever.
Yeah.
I'll
It's
send
a
you.
link.
That would be a typical HTML thing.
Yeah.
I'll send you to the 404. It's okay.
Yeah, who cares?
Um, yeah. 384 pages.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the problems with Cinderlib is just a matter of going through and looking at the failures and trying to fix it. And
There are lots.
yeah, and then Cinder, it's an issue of how do we.
Size, sheer size.
How is sheer size? Yeah. I tried to Google that error message, and there was lots of other people running into it too. But some people said the only way to overcome that is to modify some system level latex build files.
Huh.
And I'm not sure if that's. So this eventually wants to get turned into a CI job that produces all this stuff too.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if they want to allow us to hack those. But I tried the suggestions in there and they don't work. So someone with more Sphinx latex specific experience either that or find out a way to break the documentation up into multiple PDFs, one for just the drivers and one for the services, but that might mean reorganizing our documentation too.
Yeah,
Or
that
finding
could.
some magic way to say, hey, when you build PDFs, ignore all these files, but
Right.
for this and build the second, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't tried doing Nova yet or any of the other services, but then there's probably one of the biggest.
So when they build, what I'm thinking of, so for the Cinder client release, it either could or doesn't have to go in because they build out a master anyway, I think, for
Yeah.
documentation. So, okay.
Are they going to publish PDFs somewhere?
I guess so, yeah.
Okay.
And we want to ship the PDFs along with our product that we ship too. So
Yeah.
if we can just pull one down from upstream and then we're done. This is why it's somewhat of a priority for me to see if I can how far we get. But this is an overall TC goal for
Right.
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 Okay. Do we know who might have the latex or Sphinx experience to help out?
Just I asked in the OpenStack doc, and some guy thinks that someone else may have overcome this somehow. But
Right.
until they ask the question,
There's a man behind a curtain.
Yeah.
And,
that's about it.
all right.
So I'm kind of blocked on it unless we can find someone that has.
Right.
Um,
So I think she sent something to the mailing list, just like a general thing saying
Yeah,
we need some help
we
with
need
somebody who knows.
Okay, I'd seen
latex.
notes. I hadn't read them yet.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, they're docs people. They don't know very much at all about even Python patching and how we build our projects and how this stuff works. So she put up a patch to add a new requirement, which is what a lot of the projects are going to need, but they really need help from, project-specific folks to say, hey, you tried this out,
Right.
add your tox INI changes, which are needed, which I figured out a way to do dependencies within tox, which is kind of cool. I didn't know existed, but
That's cool.
Yeah.
Is as a train goal, is there code that needs to go out with train to make this happen, or is it one of those things that if we're having to keep working on it through the end, the docs are released independently, right?
docs are released independently. So there's a couple approaches that we've kind of talked about. One is that they have this CI job patch that they're trying to add on to the tail end of the OpenStack docs CI job to automatically build the docs for a particular project without modifying the project, and that's kind of sort of going okay. But my contention with that is that it might help us with the short-term goal, but if I'm an engineer working on Cinder and I might get changed to a driver, which makes a change to documentation, am I going to have to wait for a CI job to complete before I find out if that update to that doc actually works?
Well, I think we already have the job that will do.
We have an HTML version, but not the PDF version. So
Oh, I was
So you mean
assuming, I
like in
guess.
our local talks. Because I think the main docs job stopped using the talks command.
Yes.
For the, okay.
yes,
Okay.
Oh,
so
it's
it's
an
not-
Ansible job.
It runs a whole different thing.
Yeah.
It's a whole different thing. The CI job that has an Ansible task
Okay.
that's appended to the post end of the docs job
Okay. Right.
to execute a bunch of Ansible tasks that does a lot of the stuff that I'm adding into the
Yeah.
So my contention was that may work at a certain point, but just like for all the projects, before we check in a patch, we're supposed to make sure we didn't break anything.
Yeah.
And if a change to a documentation hack that I do on my patch breaks something, I want to know about it before I push it up instead of waiting for the CI job to finish. So
Yeah.
I kind of convinced them that we should look at adding a tox entry for all the projects, so that way we can build these locally.
That was my concern about one, because I still don't understand why they stopped using the local talks job for each project, because now our local stuff diverges from
Yeah,
what's actually running in CI.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
what can you do?
I just
Okay.
tried to run this Cinder one, and it just failed with the document reference problem.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
All right, so the basic thing is that it's not, if it's working, we can include it in the release. If it's not, it doesn't really matter, because the docs are being built out of master anyway. So it's not essential that this be in table or anything, or is that not true?
If I can get the patch to work, I mean, there's no
We
harm
should-
in putting it in, because it's just a tox change,
Okay,
and you have to specifically run that tox target to build the PDFs, because it's separate from the docs target.
okay,
This is
So
what
it
they
won't-
wanted
okay.
for whatever reason, so I'm like, okay, we're not going to argue that.
Right.
So
so it won't impact.
it won't impact the tox-e docs
Okay.
run.
Okay. And do we have a question? Because Rajat, looks like Rajat's online now.
Yeah.
Question
So
about the-
so we kind of got sidebarred into the PDF discussion. So let me wrap that up quickly. As far as what are the action items from that?
So I currently have 4 patches up. I have one against Cinder, cinderlib, OSBrick, and the Cinder client.
Okay.
Cinderlib is failing because I think cinderlib has docs problems, but the others pass CI, but there's nothing in CI that's running this tox job that I just added. So they pass CI, but if you actually pull down the patch and run it against Cinder, it will fail. Open memory problem.
Okay.
OSBrick and the Cinder client runs work.
So we should look at those and work on getting them.
Yeah, we need help
Merged.
for cinderlib specifically because there's broken references in there. And the Cinder one, I'm going to still try and work with the docs team and see if we can come up with a way to solve that problem.
When you have a minute, can you just take the WIP off your Cinder client?
The Cinder client one, sure.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the ones that are
Okay.
failing, if you can whip them, and the ones that are good to go.
Okay.
Very good.
You are not ready to go. So we need an owner for the Cinder lib piece.
Take a look at that.
Okay.
Yeah, probably one of us.
Yeah.
I would
work it.
I would volunteer, but I know I probably won't have time for it. And well, Red
Yeah, let
Hat's pushing Cinder
Yeah,
lib,
so that's right. That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking. We can, and I don't want Gorka to spend his time on doc stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, so put me down for looking at this.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll just run that job and watch
Yeah,
it.
you'll see.
Well,
Okay.
so I mean,
Right.
we could probably. Do we have a requirement to ship functioning docs for cinderlib yet, or is it still like an alpha thing? Or
Oh,
I mean, I guess the question is for cinderlib, like, does it even matter?
right,
It's probably not that hard to fix either way.
right. Well, let me look. All right, I'll time box it.
Yeah.
Because Cinderlib's at 090, I think. I think it's
Yeah.
still under 1. So I guess
It may be that since it's a new developer-oriented thing anyway,
it doesn't necessarily need PDF docs. Okay.
but it's probably not too hard to fix. So, I don't know. Well, it's not PDF docs. It's I think it's docs in general don't build, right?
Right.
Or
Well, it
there's
sounds like the
or
HTML
there's
ones
errors,
build is just that.
but they might have broken links.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So it depends on what you mean by build successfully.
I can't even build the regular docs in Cinder right now.
Oh,
No, you can't.
It's failing with like a talk tree contains a reference to a non-existent document thing.
How did that?
I don't know
merge?
because I don't know
I'll try it here. It might be. See what
because I just pulled Git from Walt's patch and I can't even build the regular docs.
okay. That's not
Okay.
good.
all right.
It's because we have too many docs. Just remove the link reference. Okay, so we got action items on the PDF discussion. Cinder client major version bump, we need to come together with some action items on that one. So it looks like Rajat, I'm assuming, is the yellow. Didn't get much time to look into it. We'll provide update on next Cinder meeting. So is there anything you need from us, Rajat, as far as looking at that goes, or you just need to update the patch based on the feedback you've got?
I'm quite clear with the design. I need to work on it.
Okay. So you said you are clear with the design?
Yeah, I'm clear with what are the expectations regarding that.
Okay. So you'll work on getting another patch pushed up, and we'll talk about it next week's meeting.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And the deadline for making changes to Cinder Client is September 9th. So
Double check that.
if we're going to get it in, we need to get it in before then.
It's the week of the 9th, I guess.
Right, okay. So it's by that Thursday usually, or Wednesday, I guess.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll try, so we won't release until we need all Sean's stuff merged.
Yep.
We need Eric's auto negotiation merged and Rashad's.
Or we at
we'll
least
get
have
an
a
update from him
decision
too.
on
Right.
that.
So we're,
And all the major bump stuff is all tied to, I think the first patch is like the release note, and they all
Okay.
depend on it. So I think it's set up where we should be able to review and approve all the code and then merge them all at once with
Okay.
the. With
Oh,
the,
good.
I think is how Sean structured it.
great.
Because we really don't want to merge like half
Right,
of
just-
them and then end up in some like half done thing.
Right. Okay.
So I think we've got the to-dos out of that one. So the question is, how many of the to-dos from this discussion will we get done compared to what we did in Denver? Because I went through and it looked like there were a lot of to-dos that got forgotten. Anyway, partially my fault. Okay. Okay. Oh, thanks for putting the links in, Walt. That's helpful. Okay, multi-attach discussion.
Multi-attach.
Multi-path. Ludelis. So,
Multi-attach.
no, multi-attach.
Oh, okay. I'm like, what?
We've had a lot of discussions lately with both of them involved.
So I think you actually put this on the agenda, or asked me to.
Right.
Oh, the third-party CI requirements.
Right now, I thought.
Well,
Okay, so right, so we got two issues. I think. Right, well, so yeah, the problem is right now to turn on multi-attach, you enable the flag in your driver, and the downside of that is that people have been doing that and then it hasn't been actually working. We don't have.
it's literally almost like 100% failure rate. Like,
So that's
yeah. And part of that is because we don't have a Tempest test that does enough to actually
Exercise it.
Yeah.
figure out if it works. And so I've thought up a way to write one, but it's a lot of work that somebody needs to go do at some point.
Can LVM or Ceph do multi-attach?
Ceph can. Ceph ends up being a lot easier than most of the drivers because you don't have all the iSCSI interaction and everything, and there's just less to
It's live
break.
RBD.
Yeah, so the Ceph one is like a little bit easier.
It's not really the same kind of a test as you would get for an iSCSI.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, we were joking, but like in testing at Red Hat, I mean, we've run into like test multi-attach when you're using multi-path, and then there's a whole bunch of device management that has to all happen just right. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that can break, and we don't have too many CIs to test multi-path.
Yeah, we don't even have that. It was. There's, I think, only one driver that actually did test it for a
Pure's
while.
was
Pure.
doing it, and I don't know what state theirs is in now, but
I think the HP drivers did.
yeah.
The FC one specifically.
So there's a lot of ground to be gained on figuring out or just putting some effort into trying to write a CI job for this that actually does something. Because the problem is the CI job that everyone is using, I think, to figure out if it works, all it does is it says, yeah, I attached it, but it doesn't do enough to figure out if the IO semantics work or anything. And so there's been 3 or 4 drivers that all fail and the LVM driver was one of them. They all fail in the same way. They do the multi-attach, and it works. And then when you disconnect one of the attachments, it breaks the one that's supposed to still be attached. We don't do enough in Tempest to detect that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So to find problems like that, we would need a Tempest test that does an attachment and then SSHs in and writes some kind of pattern data or something, and then, you know, detaches and writes some more data and then goes and reads it to see if it works. And
Well,
you could
even
do
more
it,
basic
but-
stuff such as, does the volume path on the host still exist for the first attachment?
Yeah. Oh yeah, when you connect the second one, yeah,
Or when you, so you have two connected,
yeah,
or it connected twice. You remove one of them, the first one should still be there.
yeah. Well, and you also end up with, I mean, for as far as all the things that could go wrong, like you want to test attaching to two instances on the same compute host, and you really also want to test it on two instances on separate compute hosts because it's a whole different thing for iSCSI. And I don't know that we even have a good way to test the separate ones, the I stuff, because you need multiple nodes and it's a whole.
You would have to do a lot of coordinated.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that.
And so the problem is, you know, we're kind of relying on driver owners to just try it out by hand. And so far, they've not, in general, done a great job at doing that.
Partially, this was discovered because the HP driver was broken with respect to this, right?
Yeah,
Or was,
well,
they
I
put it
mean,
in patch.
it's been a handful of drivers, and you know, we've been productizing this feature finally for our product, and we're finding some of this stuff as we do that. But we don't have any like automated way to test this internally either. I mean, it's just doing stuff by hand.
So as a short-term thing, do we need to put up like a page or something that just before you turn it on? Here's the manual test that
we probably should say like at least go try to do this and this. And we can ask them to do multi-node tests that somebody in a development lab could probably do a lot easier than CI stuff can. Is it,
Ask the vendors.
Yeah.
well, yeah, I'm saying if you're going to
Driver
turn,
maintain
because they already have to make a code change just to turn it on in the driver.
Yeah.
And it'd be good to have a page that says, if you're going to do this, this is all the stuff you need to think about and test.
So I know, for instance, for the Lenovo driver, they enabled it and thought it worked, and then when we asked about it, they went and tried it and went, oh, this doesn't work, and so now have fixed it. So I mean, trying to figure out some way to kind of document this. So one, if we put up a page that says, here are the things you need to try on your driver, and then for subsequent patches where they're trying to enable this, ask that in the patch they show proof of that.
Well, and so I don't know. I mean, a lot of it has to really rely on people just being responsible for now, I think, which is tricky. Like I was reviewing a patch for, it might have been 3-part, I can't remember. It was something where they were changing the way attachments are managed, I think, for fiber. And it was changing a bunch of, it was changing a bunch of stuff, and I was just trying to ask them, like, did you try this with multi-attach? And I didn't get a lot of comforting response from
Unfortunately, that patch itself really was not the right place to ask it, but I don't know where you do that.
Well, but they already, well, I'm just trying to figure out if they're going and breaking it with that change, because if no one's testing it, that's kind of what.
So I guess we need to, so this page that we would put up would need to say, right, we currently don't have a good way to automate the multi-patch testing. So if you want to turn it on, please make sure you can do all this stuff. And that doesn't guarantee it's going to work, but at least these are the common things that we've seen fail.
Yeah.
And then if you make changes to your driver, you need to please go back and do some more manual testing about this stuff, just to make sure whatever you've done hasn't broken your multi-attach ability.
Yeah, or at least do some risk assessment about it, because it's that patch I was just looking at because it was changing some general structure of how it managed.
Right.
I forget what it was. But it's tricky because the real answer is we really need some automated way to test it.
Right.
Until then, we're kind of relying on people to do a bunch of legwork that I think most of them don't really want to do.
Well, maybe, because I think when you said in the meeting, hey, you need to at least do this test, or so, oh, okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Did it, and then said, oops, doesn't work.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure it's so much they don't want to as much as it didn't occur to them that, I don't know.
You should test attaching
I guess I'm
multiple
just being a little more
times.
optimistic, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think if we just have a thing, we'll put together a small document just saying, here are some things, please do these. And whether they do them or not, we can't really control, but at least this is a helpful thing
Yeah.
so that your customers
We
don't.
really need a CI
CI,
job
yeah.
that can specifically test for a couple things. One is that, when you attach it, the attachment goes through. I mean, we should be able to get that from Cinder and Nova APIs.
Well, I think that's the
That is
test.
just fine.
I think that's the test we have now. I mean, it at least does an attachment, and I don't know what all it examines to see if it was successful, but it at least does one. of some
My
sort.
guess is it just probably checks the volume state.
That's probably what it does.
Um,
Well, and it could check attachment records too. So,
yeah.
but that doesn't. That just tells you that Cinder.
Cinder and Nova thinks it's
Yeah,
okay.
that doesn't mean
right?
it actually worked though.
Right. And especially on the delete case, because the delete case is more problematic because you can delete it or detach from one. And Nova says, well, I don't care about the other one. We're not trying to look at
and
that.
that's the
And there's
thing
no way
is-
to verify that
I think-
it's still there.
Yeah, to verify that one, we're going to have to write something that SSHs in and does I/O. You can do that, but it's not easy to do.
We have OS Brick.
Yeah.
OS Brick knows how to talk to all of the volumes and attachments on the system itself and review that. We just need an API in front of that allows us to call and say, hey, give me what you've got there now. And then compare them before the detach and after the detach to make sure on the second,
Right, that is,
or on the original attached, when you detach the second one, that the original's still there. And all those paths are still there. Because you can,
Yeah, I don't know that we want to make an API for that though.
it's not an API we need to add to any system.
Yeah.
We just need, or service, we need to add
Some kind
a
of-
simple
Some kind of
Flask
test rig thing.
rig in front of OS Brick. And that would be
Yeah.
easy to write.
Well, I also don't know. I mean, you could write it, but it's going to look different for different drivers because some of them present this in different ways. I think, as far as
For iSCSI and FC, that's
I think even for iSCSI, they show up differently sometimes because I don't remember what it was. We were looking at this the other day. Because on some backends, I think they reuse one line, and some backends they map like two whole separate lines that go to the same thing.
yeah. But if it's still there,
Yeah.
then we're okay. Or if it's gone on the other host, then because OS Brick can discover based upon the connector. We can store the connector as part of the test and say, hey, do you see the volume for this connector over there?
Right.
And if it's sharing the same one, who cares?
Yeah.
If it's there, it's there. And any VM that's looking at that is still going to be able to use it. Anyway, so there needs to be something written so that way we can do some inspection side of Nova and Cinder on the actual host itself to make sure that volume is there. That doesn't solve the problem for Ceph.
Yeah. So there's another whole piece of this stuff too that I think we've been not looking at for a while, which is the whole doing read-only attachments and read-only and read-write, which there's code in there that gives you that functionality. I would be really surprised if it works on hardly any drivers.
I don't think it does.
I don't think it does either. I mean, we saw a bug downstream this week. Somebody was complaining about it with Ceph, but I would really be surprised if it works for any of them, to be honest.
I don't think it does.
And we probably really need to assess that because I'm assuming that the read-only attached stuff is mostly useful for the multi-attach kind of stuff. I could be wrong. I don't really know what the origin of that even was, but
I don't even, that was part of the original spec years and years and years ago.
Yeah.
When we first started on it.
and I think we coded up most of it, but we never really followed through with figuring out if it actually worked and does what it's supposed to do.
The drivers that I know of, there's no way to specify.
Right.
It's just
Well, and I think in some cases it was maybe supposed to be done at the front end by Nova, because I don't think that many backends can actually do that. But we probably need to just assess that whole thing because we've been shipping it for a while, and I imagine that people doing multi-attached stuff might be the people that want to use it for things. But I don't know.
a while back when we first started looking at this, if you don't use cluster file system on it, the read-only flag doesn't matter anyway. They'll get corrupted. Even if you mount it as read-only, as an ext4, for example, they'll still get corrupted.
Yeah, but it gives you some interesting cases where you can, you could do a read-only attached to like copy stuff off and examine it or that kind of thing. But I don't know. It's nobody talks about that feature ever. I just know that it's in there, and I don't know. For all I know, we could just turn the whole thing off and nobody would even notice. But sure.
Yeah, I don't even know if there's even a flag that gets shipped along the connector itself that gets sent to
I think there is.
Is there?
I think there's something that gets sent to Nova for it.
So then the Vert and Nova may just be ignoring it.
Yeah.
Or have no ability to.
Well, and I'm not even sure, the way we connect, librd, I don't think it even has that option. So it would have to be like a libvirt. Maybe it's a general libvirt option, and you just say do read only, but.
Yeah. Okay, add to do items, see if libvirt supports read-only points.
Okay.
I'm
Let's
sure.
see if,
I'd be surprised if it doesn't. But CD-ROM.
Right.
Images read-only.
Who's going to take that?
I don't.
So we need to add it.
I don't know.
Okay.
You can put my name by it, but I'm not going to do a whole lot with it very quickly. But I am interested in it. What else on multi-attach?
Are we going to require people to add CI, even though we have no way to truly CI it? There's no
Well,
generic
anybody
CI job
that turns it on in the driver is supposed to at least turn on the current Tempest test for it. But
So I guess that's our job to ensure that when we're doing
because it
that.
well, and it's
because it shows up as a skip test. Specifically
Yeah.
says not multi-attach isn't enabled or something. We're not testing it. Can't see it, but you do have to look. Yeah. All right. So.
Yeah, the main thing that seems like it would be useful to me would be to go explore whether we can extend the Tempest test to actually determine, more about whether it works right or not. I think if we're clever enough, we probably can, but it's not going to be a very easy project for anybody.
You've got a real person doing testing now, right?
Reviewing this stuff is tough too. I am currently butting heads with fixing the one of the Dell drivers related to this, because I think they have a race condition in it where it looked like it was possible that if you raced, you would do detaches for the multi-attach volume, and then it would never actually, in some cases, it would never actually tear down the attachment on the back end. But I'm not sure what to conclude from that. I guess we need to see if maybe that's a common pattern where make sure people aren't making assumptions about only one detach happening at the same time for how they tear things down. Because for backends that wait for the last one to be detached, I think that's a case where they'll run into that kind of problem. Because on this driver fix I was reviewing, it was like on the last detach, it would tear down some on the back end, but the way it was written, they could happen simultaneously, and then nobody would ever tear down what it was supposed to tear down at the end of it.
That's what the 3-par driver does, is it actually asks on the 3-par,
Yeah.
is this the last detachment? And if so, then tear down the rest of the information.
And you can do that if you have a lock in the right place, or you know that it's going to be sequential, or whatever. But I think people in general struggle a lot with the concurrency aspect of Cinder drivers because it's just not obvious really how that works.
Yeah. At one point, I said shame on you for putting locks around your entry points, but I think
a lot of drivers,
HA stuff, I think it's kind of
a lot of drivers need it.
I have a Seth bug that I'm starting to look at that has that there's a driver problem when someone goes only 40 volumes all parallel, and the actual Cinder service crashes and moves out.
Oh, really?
So
Yeah.
try to reproduce this.
We saw one like that with Cinder backup fixing recently, where the RBD would like abort,
Yeah.
it would like crash out the Python layer, C++ stuff. What else on multi-attach? For people that are doing it with our product, it's definitely an ongoing thing. So I'm assuming we're going to keep sending errors and what else to. At some point, if we ever actually get it all to work with regular volumes, we'll need to go assess the encrypted volume limitation. There was a theory that it might actually work with Lux volumes, but I didn't really want to bet on that, and nobody's wanted to go figure out if it would work right or not. So it currently just doesn't let you do that.
So should we go through the drivers that have the flag enabled and see if they're actually passing the one test that we have now? And if they're not, then do we put up a patch that removes that flag? Or we file a bug? I mean,
We
Yeah.
it's not even passing that one. Then.
Yeah.
I would bet that a lot of them probably passed that test. Because I think most of them that we've had to fix actually have run that test. I mean, it's probably something we could do, but I don't know that I would expect it to find a whole lot.
But it's worth going through and
Assessing what's enabled and what's actually running that test. And if they're just skipping and ignoring it, then that's bad, yeah. should file a bug at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like something that we should handle before the end of the release. Because if we need to some arms, and it's our chance to remove that flag from the release, I guess.
Did any of you ever hear feedback from people that actually deploy multi-attach? I don't really. Like, I know we have people asking for it, but I never hear a whole ton about like what they actually use it for, how it goes, and that kind of thing.
It always seemed like a very special use case because you have to run a cluster file system on it.
Well, the biggest one was always Oracle databases was the popular one I always heard of. But I've never actually heard hardly anybody say I went and deployed it. Yeah, I mean we've had customers asking for it for that.
Oh, really?
But I've never heard much about people who actually went and did it and how it went.
Well, IBM was the one that pushed it heavily, and now they're about to have all of their drivers removed. So,
no, I mean I think it's a good feature. It's
I mean, this is what 5 years ago when I started working on Cinder, this was the discussion.
Oh yeah, well it's an important feature for a certain small group of people, basically.
Yeah.
So replication. But
Yeah, we should probably talk about replication at some point in here, but that's another thing.
Oh, well, that'll be fun. 5 years and we're still talking about the same things.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, at least multi-attach is converging on something that looks like it kind of works.
Okay, so take a look at the drivers that have it enabled and see if they're running the test case. I can take the to-do on that one, since I'm the grumpy old CI guy right now. So here's what I would propose to be, given that we're kind of late in the release, is that we open bugs against those maintainers in question, and then if we don't hear anything back early in the unicorn or unnameable release, we mark them, or is it ununicornable now? Yeah, it's ununicornable.
There's not that many drivers that have it turned on.
Okay. You know, so I don't feel like we need, given that this is kind of a new requirement, let's say, hey, you should be doing it. If you don't, open a bug. Maybe add a release note that says, you know, hey, he's just to kind of make aware that, hey,
Flags
these are
multi-attached, but it's not been
flags,
tested.
but has not been tested. And then maybe update it in the next release to remove the flag in the case we hear nothing from them.
yeah, I mean, I would say there's an argument to be made that if they don't respond to the bug or train ships, that
That then we unsupport it. And
not unsupported, but
Multi-attach.
remove the
flag.
multi-attach, like do with a release
That's
note.
not too drastic.
The driver's
Yeah.
still there, it still functions.
Right.
If they want it, they can hack it and turn it on. You know,
Okay.
and if they're not responding to a bug, we should escalate it and say, well, you know, you say you support this, but we have no verification of it.
Right, okay. Because it's not I think it's a relatively simple change in the Tempest setup, right?
Yeah, it's
Enable
a
this test,
volume
so-
feature enabled. It's a one-line config change.
So, okay, so that's, should be easy to do with their existing CI solid.
Do you support multi-attach?
Right.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So then, we have a very limited support. But you can send there.
Okay.
One of the ones that's disabled.
Okay.
That's the one idea. Sure.
I'd rather do this than add a new check in the volume manager to say, hey, this flag is on, but we haven't verified, blah, blah, blah. And I'll put some stupid message in the log, which everyone will ignore. more so.
I don't think it's that important.
I don't think so either. I think.
Okay. All right. So I got the to-dos out there on that one.
Okay.
Interesting. We're actually on time if we'd gotten the video set up in the time that I originally wanted. Yeah. It seems like we generally like our cadences. We can handle something for 30 minutes and then we're like, all right, that's all we can do for this. Backport policies.
So,
And this was another one you highlighted.
yeah.
And I
So,
added.
all right. So the situation was with the sort of related to this discussion, I think, because it was turning the. Well, I put the links here. So basically, the claim was that code. Sorry. So sort of two issues. One
Okay.
was like this particular case, how should we have allowed this or not? And then the other thing is sort of in general. All right. So take this a third try. Okay. So we had allowed a backport to something that we thought was okay. The idea was that the code was all there in the driver. It was just they forgot to put the multi-attached flag on to say, hey, you can use it.
That was the Dot Hill
MSA,
Yeah.
MSA Lenovo
Right.
driver. Yeah.
So we went ahead. So the Cinder team said, yeah, this is cool. We can backport this. So we did. And then Matt, somebody from the stable maintenance team, saw this and just
yeah.
said, hey, this is backporting a feature.
So
Yeah.
You shouldn't do it. So what actually happened in this case was that Eric mentioned, in addition to those tempest tests, you really should see
if
manually
it actually
this
works.
And then that it did. So we wound up reverting this. But the so one issue is being better about what we backport. But the other thing is really, I didn't quite agree with so if this code had been there, it seemed like this was actually an okay backport, even though it was sort of enabling a new feature. So I guess what I'm trying to say is,
The code.
Enabling multi-attach?
yeah, in the stable branch.
But so the patch was just adding.
It's just changing it to true.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
Yeah, and this is where we went round and round.
because if
And then it
if
ended
had
up-
actually worked. I mean,
Well,
Matt
so
Friedman would have objected to it because it's turning off a feature. But the
well,
idea
one
was
one
that-
thing we need to fix there is
Yeah.
that we need to get people to understand that Cinder actually has a stable team, which seems to be very lost on some people participating in this discussion.
Well, some of our stable team is less stable than it used to be.
But it's tricky because a while ago, so like in our product, we have to backport feature stuff all the time because people need it. I mean, we're backporting multi-attach for like 5 drivers to Queens right now because we have to. And we used to get help with this via the driver fixes branches upstream. What is the face?
You're backporting multi-attached to OSP 13 for people?
Yeah.
So you're doing OSP 13 releases that add in multi-attached support?
Well, to add it in for drivers.
Okay.
I don't know what the confusion
I-
is.
That baffles me, but okay.
Well, because 13 was Queens, and that's the
Oh,
last
and
long
that's
life.
your LTS,
And
yeah.
a lot of our customers don't care about the ones that aren't the long life releases. They
Yeah.
just install the one every year and a half or whatever.
Well, yeah,
it is.
our next one we're looking at is 16, so.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So we used to get a lot of help along these lines from the driver fixes branches.
Yep.
Which were far more liberal and, kind of we could just backport whatever we as Cinder decided we wanted to. And it was kind of this pseudo stable branch thing that was not really a stable branch, but it was used as kind of a place to put code at least. And now we don't have that anymore. And so it falls back to the stable branch policies. And the problem is, I think a lot of people that use Cinder or us shipping Cinder need and want to do stuff, that's not what the stable official policy would allow us to do. And so then the question is like, what do? We just all get to do it on our own separately, which we made driver fixes originally because we decided it was dumb that everybody was going and doing this downstream on their own.
Yeah.
And it actually helped a lot because it let everybody collaborate and do it upstream. So then the question is, what do we do now if we have all these? I mean, this is going to continue to be the case that we have a bunch of people wanting to backport stuff, but it's not clear like what we do with it. I mean, some people who don't work on Cinder seem really against the idea of us stretching the stable branch policies, which is fine. But I don't know if that means we should just make our own branches and do it there, or I don't know really what we should do with it. But it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to stick with the only thing we have is this stable branch that we can't backport anything to, because it just doesn't fit with what people actually need to do.
We do a lot of similar stuff. I mean, we do a lot of backporting too.
Yeah.
And we try as much as possible, almost always, to do it upstream.
Well,
Because we don't have to maintain patches, because we do RPM builds for all of the services.
we do that for bug fixes, but we have to backport a lot of minor feature things that won't go into Cinder stable upstream. And we can't be the only people that are doing that, I assume.
Well, the feature stuff, I think we pretty much stick to just bug fixes.
Well, there's a big difference in kind of risk for, I mean, it's not like backporting a whole Cinder-wide API feature. It's usually backporting like one driver's support for a feature that already exists in Cinder kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different kind of risk profile when it's, just that driver and we can test it, see if it works and that kind of stuff.
I'm more lenient with. I have been more lenient with the driver. If it's just a driver change.
Well, apparently now,
and-
anytime we try to do that, somebody else that doesn't work on Cinder is going to come yell at us.
Well,
So-
and then what was up with the one earlier this week where Sean came in and started axing?
That made me very unhappy.
Yeah,
I
that
saw
was
that.
kind of a mess too.
That was
Because I looked at it, I hedged, I went, well, it's in their driver, it's one option.
So that was the case where we could. So we did a backport and something was broken, right? So then we could either fix it and backport the fix, which is what we would usually do. But I think Sean wanted to revert it and like start the whole thing over.
Yeah, he literally reverted the patch because
From master or
from master
Yeah.
and -2'd all of the backport patches because it had a space in one of the strings that get output.
yeah.
It had a backslash in one line.
The backslash thing is nonsense.
I mean, the backslash stuff, it shouldn't be there,
shouldn't be
whatever, but
well,
come on.
Somebody could fix it with a future
A follow-up
patch.
And the other one was he wanted a better comment in the release note.
yeah.
And that was the justification for reverting all of that. And
Yeah.
I said, why not just do a follow-up patch and fix it all? And because we do that all the time.
Right.
Because we need to put stuff all the way back many releases. And it's like, well, that's just a pain that you have to go through.
This, right.
Yeah,
So
and I'm-
he
The idea was that it-
reverted the patch in master, -2 to all the backport patches, put up a new patch with a fix in it, which was broken. And I had to get one of the guys in HP to look at the broken patch that he put up to fix that. And that is still, and now that patch is not passing the HPCI. So I almost +2 the last time I go share. I did look at the CI, and it was failing. So that was a disaster, in my opinion. It should not have ever been done. We should have just put up a simple patch that fixed those minor things and backport that along with the other
Yep,
backports.
I agree. That sounds like an overreaction. But anyway.
So
And I'm sorry I didn't get involved in that, but I was.
it's all right. I think
Drowning in
we're
other
busy and we'll
stuff
talk
here.
about it eventually anyway. So.
Okay.
So I have a question that's related to this. Is that when we backport stuff, do we ever get updated documentation builds?
Yes.
I think so.
Yes.
So if it
And I don't know how that happens, but I've asked the question before, and the doc builds out for,
I believe
It
it's usually
happens.
built, except you do sort of have to look occasionally because every so often the job that does it is failing.
okay.
Is it like a periodic job? Or?
I think so. It's on the
Yeah.
dock side. There was some kind of, I ran into this branch about 2 years ago. There was some kind of weird problem, and one of our stable branches was never getting rebuilt. But it turned out to be, it was something on the dock side. So I'm pretty sure they're supposed to be refreshed.
So I think, if we're going to have backports of minor features for drivers, at a minimum, the documentation needs to get a refresh along with that. So we have a release note somewhere it's documented along with that release that, okay, this feature is added to this specific driver. So there's a
Right.
pointer
And so
to
that's that's sort of been the red flag, is that the word feature shows up in it, and it's a stable branch, so boom,
We
you're not
can't-
supposed to do it. But that's
But, and then people come back and go, no, it's not a feature, it's a bug fix because the feature was there and we
It just
didn't
didn't
enable
work
it,
here.
or it didn't work here, we thought it was working.
There's sometimes a big gray area. The specific
Yeah.
packs that I was talking about with the NSP that got reverted, that was a bug fix, but it had to add a new
Option, yeah,
driver option.
which I
and
looked at
whole new
that
stuff.
and went, yeah, that's why I didn't complain about it.
So
yeah.
you could argue on one hand that it's a new feature that didn't exist back then because you have to turn this on to fix this bug. So it's
I can't believe I missed extra spaces and backslashes.
you
I'm getting,
know.
remember the days when that's all I found.
Yeah.
Well, so
So I personally don't care about features being added to a driver.
I
I don't either. But what I'm saying is, I think if we decide that, then the real stable team is going to come yell at us if we decide we're going to start doing it. So
Well, I
we
think
got
we
to
could-
figure out how we're going to manage all that.
Yeah. I think if we're clear that that's our policy,
And they're going to show up and say, it doesn't
Yeah, they're
matter,
going to come and block.
which is
Every
why-
once in a while, Riedemann's going to pop his head up and go, what? No. And
we
Right.
just have to not let Eric do any of this backwards.
So
Yeah.
I mean, there's a valid argument for not allowing brand new features because then people are going to develop a lot of stuff on older branches because that's what their customers are using. They're
Well,
not
I mean,
using the
But
master.
that's the problem is we're failing to have a system that actually accounts for what we need in real life to do.
I know.
And that's the thing, so I kind of wonder if we need something like the driver fixes thing again, or what. I'm not sure, really.
This was, I probably shouldn't say it, but this is one of the reasons why I still think there's an argument for drivers to not live. And people can release them as a pip install. Yes, these types of things would not be a problem.
Brian, you're in charge. What do you think? I'm out.
That's a totally different.
Yeah,
That's a totally different thing and to derail this, but that was one of the
Right,
original arguments
yeah.
for it, is that it would allow updates and features to be added for older releases.
I'm going to go back through the videos and put together a compilation
Yeah.
of you going, I don't mean to bring this up again,
But I'm
but.
going to.
Yeah, so we want to thread this little narrow gap of
Yeah.
allowing stuff that's useful to people get into the stable branches.
Well, then we were doing that
Yeah.
with the driver fixes ones before.
So when we stop,
So-
We stopped doing driver fixes branches because we decided that the stable branches would have a longer life.
Yep.
But nobody accounted for the fact that they have a different policy around them. Right, that was the thing.
So who enforces that policy?
The
Well-
stable
Is it-
wizards of OpenStack. I mean,
Yeah.
there's people that aren't Cinder people.
so there's stable maintenance team. Is supposed to do the final.
And
Well, actually,
generally,
what they do is they can minus two stuff.
Right.
We work really fast.
Yes.
So it's not.
So, okay, everybody
Right, yeah.
on channel, let's go +2 stuff now.
Yeah,
Go.
hurry.
You know, and so the first gatekeeper is our stable team. So obviously we have our policies that we follow, and then occasionally they come through and do a sniff test, and occasionally.
And I guess it's usually at the time of a release. We'll do a quick review over what
Well, anytime they're
patches are
gonna,
coming in.
yeah, anytime they're gonna cut a stable
They're
release,
gonna look
they
at it.
read through the change log and they say, this looks fishy, you know, what is this
Yeah.
thing?
So we just label everything as a bug.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I mean,
Bug feature.
bug fix to add the thing that should have been there that's not.
Yeah, which is the argument that we always get on this is, well, it's a bug fix adding the thing that I forgot to add.
Yeah, exactly.
Enter sad trombone.wave.
Yes. So I think one of the major arguments to play devil's advocate against doing that is that there's no CI.
Yeah,
Test these.
there's very few CIs that run on the stable stuff.
The CI just, for whatever reason, they just don't maintain CI running on those older. I
Which
can't
the regular,
comprehend why they can't do that. Snapshot and
or, I mean, talking about just the regular gate jobs. I mean, those run there for quite a while. They have to run.
for the older stable releases.
Yeah, I mean, they run something, but not very many third-party.
Yeah, the third parties don't run, but we decided that they're submitting a patch against their driver.
It's up to them to make sure that
We and it's documented somewhere. We're assuming that you are testing this on your driver and not sending something out that's going to break your customers.
Well, and usually
Is
there's
that an
how well-
appropriate assumption?
we see how well that worked with multi-attach.
Just do a good job at it. At minor wires.
Yeah.
Oh, what is?
Just like
How much of our driver API has changed? Line manager to the driver interface.
So I was thinking about this the other day. We don't have a driver API is the thing. Like it's
We do and we don't.
because I made a change the other day that I was concerned someone would claim I was breaking the non-existent API when I wrote it. And I was sitting there thinking about, I wonder how this works exactly. Because we've never defined like this is the actual interface that you can use and how it works. But I don't know. What were you asking about? Why?
The reason
Yeah.
why I was asking that is, if that interface really hasn't changed any at all, then
Yeah.
why not just plug in a new version of the driver into that old version of Cinder?
It does change in subtle ways every now and then.
It does. I mean, it's
it's-
a kind of a scary thought to do, but
Yeah.
that is a way to get your new feature. It's not that release of that driver on that release of Cinder.
Oh, that you just have your customers drop in a new version.
That has the feature that was added
Yeah.
to the older version of Cinder.
Yeah, I think the hard part is there's no real programmatic way, or there's no real organized way to figure out if it's going to work or not, other than just trying to see what happens. Because we do change things that'll affect that every now and then. Not that often, but it does happen.
Wonder if there's a way we can discover that.
Bring a huge matrix of driver versions with compatibility.
I'm just raising a question.
Oh no, it's a valid question.
Is there a way for us to backdoor the stable committee by saying, hey, for this driver, we know that the API hasn't changed the last 5 releases of Cinder.
Yeah.
So it should work. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But it's the kind of similar hand waving with, well, the driver maintainer they're supposed to have tested that new feature that they just added to Queen, so
Yeah.
if it works, it works. This is the same thing. This is something that I've thought about quite a lot, because if we were ever going to get to the point of drivers out, we would need a defined interface, line manager and the driver. That way we could version it and
And the thing I've seen in those is different drivers will return different things. Most of them respect the driver base class interface, so that's cool. But return values aren't always defined, and so some will return none, some will slip out some 8 tuple of information and grab the third one or something. So
Well,
that's stuff,
we started some work, Sean did a while ago, on writing code that would validate some of that. I never have looked at it a whole lot.
yeah. I know at one point on terminate connection, people were returning stuff, and some people don't return stuff. And
Well, there was also one of those, that was actually one of the last big driver API breakages we did, was when we did the forced detach thing, we broke a ton of drivers because we did the now we can pass in an empty connector thing, and a whole bunch of drivers flat out broke.
yeah,
Because,
expecting
yeah, and then we had to go patch up all this stuff after we merged the feature that broke like 20 drivers. that was a big driver. It ticked me off because I had to go fix a whole bunch of stuff. But, that was the last big example of the driver API breaking that I recall.
When did that happen?
I think it was like Queens or something. Because it wasn't like, the change was terminate connection. This object might now be none when it wasn't ever before. It was always a thing. And a whole bunch of driver code just broke when it was none.
Tried to dereference values from it that they're expecting it to be there, and not ever going, hey, maybe this doesn't exist.
Yeah. So we could just not do that in the future would be good.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, if that was the case, it wouldn't be. I think it would be awesome to do pip install 3-part driver. Even though our product, we do RPMs for everything, so.
You can do that, alongside the tree now, I guess, too.
Yeah. There was a driver recently that I reviewed that required you to install some library, and that library itself had the driver in it itself. I don't know what that was. I told you about that. It turned out to be some jar file that they had to install.
Oh,
But
yeah.
that repo not only had the jar file, but they had their whole other copy of their driver.
Yeah.
And the documentation was pointing to that, and it was not clear what you're supposed to install and use.
Yep.
So I was like, what are they doing here?
Was that is one of the new drivers?
Yeah, like they had a jar file before it was fine, but talk to the back end.
Yeah.
Talk to the jar. Anyway.
And, so we had them update the documentation to say, get this file from here. Not, oh, look, there's a copy of the driver here.
Yeah.
That was shady. It was old. It was like really old.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So we don't have a solution for adding even minor features to drivers for stable. Is that something we want to do? I mean, if so, then we need to.
So we got two options. We do what we want and we tell the release team to leave us alone and try to explain why. Or, well, I guess we have three options. Or we go back to using the driver fix branch.
Do the the OpenStack TC might have problems with us allowing.
Yeah,
It's a philosophical thing. Why are you adding new features to an old software release?
Because the vendors that are using us
because nobody wants a new whole cloud every 6 months.
want it.
Yeah. I know, I'm just,
Yeah.
I mean, how often does SUSE do a new release?
once a year.
Once a year?
We do a release of our cloud software once a year and have an upgrade path to that too. And so a lot of our customers do upgrade.
You just alternate upstream releases with that.
Our next
I mean,
one's
we
gonna be trained.
release. I mean, we release all of them, but we're putting a ton of work into upgrading from Queens to Train because that's kind of the advised path for a lot of customers is to just use the long life ones.
Kind of mitigate that a little bit by forcing people to upgrade more things, of our software, which is, could be 2 or 3.
Okay.
So we backport a lot of bug fixes, almost always just bug fixes.
It looks like under certain circumstances, it seems to make sense that we should treat the drivers differently in the core code because features are there already in Cinder, and it's just a matter of a particular driver being able to.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's asking the backport like Cinder API features.
So it's just since it's just drivers.
It's like driver enablement of the Cinder feature where the core of it already. And it's tough to do it right, but the alternative is everybody just does it downstream anyway.
Right.
So then it's like,
sort of, negates the whole.
The latest 3-part patch, they have some peer persistence for in the driver itself that has no exposure outside of the driver.
yeah,
Why couldn't you backport that? There's no risk to Cinder itself. It's just a driver internally that adds a new feature that the back end supports, and they're taking advantage of some new firmware update in the back end.
yeah.
That's a prime example of this. I wouldn't have a problem. So maybe we need to make the argument to the stable team in the sense, want to treat our Cinder drivers differently from Cinder proper and major rewrites of internally the driver that doesn't affect anything else but the driver. We're okay with that. Want you allow us or not? I think it should be a discussion that should be had.
I think we may need to solve being able to ask people to run third-party CI and stuff. I don't know if there's is that a fundamentally hard thing to do for the stable branches? Or?
Well, what they could do is they could dev stack up that version of the release and run Tempest and give us the output.
It doesn't seem like it would be. I guess I don't know why people aren't kind of already doing that now. I mean, it seems like it shouldn't be that hard to implement.
I think the reason, at least a long time ago when I was developing the 3-part drivers, that the tooling around the CI system itself wouldn't work in the older versions. All that stuff was completely broken. Only worked for the current release on master for Zool and Jenkins and all that shit.
Do most people run a similar kind of setup to actually orchestrate their CI, or is it all different stuff?
There's still a mix and match of that, but most people still run.
As a company that's having huge challenges getting one CI put up, I feel concerned about asking people to do more, but I suppose if the infrastructure is already there and it's easy to add just spin up the stable branch instead.
I mean, the volume of patches going to our stable branches is not very high. I don't know that it would be a lot much to worry about as far as resources. That's why I was just wondering how hard it actually is to do.
Well, why not just ask them to provide logs of a template from DevStack, which is basically what CI is.
Yeah.
Prove that it's that version of the release of Cinder, and prove that it only has that patch on it, which is easy to do, and run templates and let's see the outcome. If it works, then it's a no-brainer. Write a link in the patch review itself with a message and say, hey, here's. That's what we used to do for drivers before CI was around.
Oh, yeah.
That's true. Forgot that. That's right, they had to do that before we would merge their driver. A long time ago in a far, far away land. Okay. This was a good idea. Good discussion.
Still not sure what we're actually going to do. Though.
Yeah.
All right, so some, but I mean, that's a good suggestion to have. So if the driver maintainer wants to backport something, then they should at least do it using the DevStack thing, right? So they can document by hand. If they have CI in the stable branches, that's great. That would be ideal. But at least they can run it and document that it works on that branch. Yes, that gives us better data. I mean, that just becomes a philosophical discussion on how you want to draw the lines.
It eliminates the how do you know this works thing,
Right.
Which is an obvious argument from the stable branch team. Like, well, you're adding a new feature.
Yeah.
How do you know it even works at all, or it doesn't? How do you know it doesn't break the world? That's probably what you're concerned about.
Yeah, that's right.
Unfortunately, if they want to backport something clean, they have to go.
Yeah.
Cinder is unique in the respect that a lot of its code base is drivers, and it should have a little bit of leeway in how we treat that, because it's not like we're Glance or Novo where in order to add a new feature, it's like modifying the core of Nova itself.
Yeah.
So, the closest thing they have to the drivers are the
Power VM.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the only project that's kind of similar would be Vanilla, but they probably haven't gotten drivers complex enough yet to have to worry about this nearly as much as we.
They're probably waiting for us to figure it out. That's right, Tom. I'm calling you out.
Well, they're a lot newer. They've probably, they haven't added nearly as many driver features and stuff as we have by now.
I say if you make sure that the documentation is still built, update the version of the docs that has that new feature, so it's not like not documented, and there's some form of verification that patch actually works against that version, then it really is nothing more than a, hey, we think we should be treated differently for driver-specific changes. Which I think is the reason why we got rid of the driver fixes branch to begin with. And just started merging everything
thought
in
we were
stable.
Yeah, it was kind of not super well defined, but I think that was part of that discussion. Was we thought we would just be a little more liberal with what we would merge.
Because hey, we're just doing backports and driver fixes all the way back, so.
I'm okay with that statement personally, because I don't know that splitting off and doing driver fixes again is great, because sometimes that branch got forgotten for reviews and it had its own challenges. I mean, the simple answer is the distributors are asking for this. You know, you guys are saying it's something you want. You're the customers. And me now as a person who's a consumer, I see the need for it. So my purist standpoint has changed.
And the other thing is, for people who don't actually consume that back end, it doesn't have any impact on
Yeah.
it.
That's not.
Right. So it's,
That's why Cinder is different.
Yeah.
Because unless you're using that back end, you're never ever going to see any impact.
Right.
so, yeah.
And the vendors and the distributors are not going to want to
Right.
backport something that they don't know doesn't work, because, well, they're probably doing it for a reason, which is because the customer wants it and they're going to make sure it
Customers
works.
usually screening for it. And
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
Like, well, paying a lot of money to get that too.
So I agree with your if statements. You know, if documentation is updated and being built, if vendor provides proof of testing, if it's limited to the driver, and I mean, I hope he would be reasonable with what kind of features are they backporting. I mean, are they backporting a complete rebuild of the driver? No, that's not okay. But like the multi-attach case where it was a flag or something. You know, the statement doesn't cover every possible combination, but
No,
we as a team will have to handle
Right.
that one by
yes,
one.
that's about what I was going to say, is that we still have a chance to review whatever nonsense they're doing. You know, if they're refactoring their driver into completely different components or whatever, or doing some major change, then, you know, there's,
Yeah.
maybe we don't want to allow that.
So it sounds like we're kind of in agreement that we want to continue to be looser with our backport policies. I think we're going to have to make this clear to the broader team. Within Cinder, I think we probably need to bring it up to the, well, we can either to the stable team. I mean, I'd like to say we just kind of try to sneak it by, but I don't think that's going to work.
No, they'll definitely notice.
Yeah.
So do we need to have a update to our documentation that makes the statement and send out an email to the mailing list that says, you know, hey, this is the need that we're hearing. This
Define the
is,
list of requirements and the things that the vendors have to do in order to get it past us. And
Yeah.
have it very well defined. And until we do that, I don't think it makes sense to go talk to the stable team. They're going to ask a ton of questions.
Right.
They're going to say no a lot, and we're going to say, this is why.
It's interesting too, because one of the big questions with it is, how do you know that the feature you're backporting works there? But I mean, we only have a fairly limited knowledge of that in master for a lot of this stuff. is kind of the thing.
I mean, CI in master is broken so much.
Yeah.
The drivers fail so much. It's like CI is basically noise for the most part.
Yeah. Well, that's why it long ago it converted from being a patch review thing to being more like a compliance thing because of that. You know, we switched from it'll tell us something about the patch to at least make sure it works every now and then is what we've ended up
Well,
at.
yeah, when I did a review, it was like if they were over 65% passing, I was like, woohoo!
Yeah, it's,
You know,
this-
and
the
people were
numbers are-
like, when I was complaining at 50%, they were like, well, why are you complaining? And I'm like,
what's bad? Like the whole point of it was we made it so that we would know if we were going to break stuff when we changed code, and it's
Yeah.
like utterly failed to deliver
Completely.
that. Like,
But-
it just
we're not the only, Cinder's not the only one failing there. I mean, Ironic has the same problem.
yeah.
Yeah.
What are we doing lunch?
Yeah,
Actually, lunch soon.
I'm starting to get a little woozy.
I was going to suggest we may want to move one of these afternoon sessions out. Well, active HA, we should probably do in the morning when Gorka can contribute and pull him in for some knowledge on that.
So let me wrap this one up first. So I took a to-do to update, to propose a patch to our documentation explaining our stable release policy as we have discussed it here. And then send a mailing, once we've reviewed it, send a mailing list note to include the stable release team to say, we're proposing this, and it should be self-explanatory in the patch I put together to explain it, for them to argue over and see if we can make progress. But because I don't know how else to do it other than write a patch to update our docs that say this is what we think we need and why, and then socialize it and see
That's
what
good.
happens. Okay.
I think that's the right thing to do.
All right. And we may end up.
They may say no.
They
and
may
then
say
we'll
no.
have to figure something else out.
Yeah,
At least we've tried.
I think there's a very large chance that the stable guys are going to come say you can't do that.
I expect it.
Yeah.
But then we have a forum session in Shanghai, which I know most of you won't be there, but I will be, and I can carry the torch for you guys. Well, and you're going to be there too, so there are two torches.
Yes.
You can have the pitchfork and I'll the torch. Okay.
Should we stop the recording, or
Yes, that sounds good. So this will be the end of chapter 2.
right? Because chapter 1 was just a test.
Okay.
Okay.
All
I
right.
will stop the
So
recording.
yeah,
now.
and
All right. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to stop the recording and check the IRC channel for when we're going to start up again.